Hey there, Daniel from GrowYourMusicStudio.com, and in this video today, we're going to talk about outsourcing your studio marketing. I think this video will be of particular value to a number of different studio owner profiles. If you're a small studio owner and you're not sure what you're doing, it might make sense to pay someone else to run your marketing for you. If you're a small studio owner and you want to maximize the use of your time, it might make sense to pay other people to do your marketing for you. If you are a large or mid-sized studio owner and you find yourself having to do a lot of entrepreneurial / CEO type tasks, and you just don't have all the time of the day necessary to do the things to grow your studio. You can't be posting on social media, you can't be the one editing pictures and videos and these sorts of things. It makes a ton of sense for you to outsource that. In fact, unlike the small studio owner who has the choice of whether they want to do it or not, you might not have that choice anymore because you just have way too much going on. If you are any one of these studio owner types, and really I've covered all of them, it could make sense to outsource your studio marketing. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up is I got 2 questions in the last week from people who read the blog or watch my videos. One of them actually is a former, current client, current and former client. And I want to read these questions for you to begin with here so you can kind of get a sense of why these questions are asked. You can relate to these questions. You might even have questions of your own. If you do, write those definitely in the comments below. Anyway, here's the 2 questions. First off, Catherine asked, I'm looking to possibly hire someone to manage my social media ad campaigns and marketing. I know there are a ton of online companies I could use, but I'm really interested in finding someone specifically who understands music studios and the SGL method. That is Successful Group Lessons method, and I'm going to kind of address that in a minute. I'm not going to talk about SGL, but I'm going to talk about the implications of the fact that we in this industry have specialized knowledge. So we'll get to that in a second. And then Cameron asked, how much would you recommend spending on outsourcing ads? And here I think he's talking about actually buying ads, whereas Catherine was talking about having someone else manage your social media for you. Those are really 2 different types of marketing, 2 very different types of marketing. And so I'm going to address both in this video. And then the last question he had in relation to that was, what should the budget be? So I think these questions are closely related. And so I'm going to take a moment to answer these just now. So first off, I do think outsourcing is smart. I do think more studio owners should outsource. If you want to run a business and do the things that you love and enjoy to do, this is why we get into business other than to make money, it makes sense to get other people involved so that they can do things that we either don't want to do, don't have the inclination to do, don't have the talent to do, or don't want to learn how to do even if we could do it well. So for instance, it makes more sense to pay someone $20 or $30 an hour to do social media marketing, and you leverage up by using the hours you would have spent on that to actually teach instead. So maybe you're teaching at $50 an hour and you're paying someone $20 an hour. Have someone manage your social media marketing for 2 hours a month. And then instead of you doing that, you teach for 2 hours a month, you get a net profit on that. And you're doing more of what you love to do. So I think that one's pretty obvious. So I'm not going to dwell too long there because I think that's a pretty common, at least I think it's a common way of thinking. Maybe it isn't. Let me know. Second, there are varying levels of outsourcing you could do. And that's really going to determine how much you pay. And this is where I want to spend a little bit of time because I think this is where most people get stuck. Because there are a lot of online companies out there like Catherine mentioned. So here's a couple levels at which you could outsource the work of social media marketing. You could be a brilliant marketer. You could completely understand the strategy. You could completely own the responsibility of creating a strategy and being up to date on what social media marketing methods are working. You could be talented enough that you could do it yourself and do an awesome job. And all you need is an assistant or a marketing associate or even one of your high school students. Literally just give them a checklist of things that they need to do. Edit these pictures, post them here, post these words with it. Send an email out to everyone in the studio saying, hey, look at what this student accomplished, or hey, check out this latest performance from the studio. And they save you a ton of time every month. And you might pay them $10 or $15 an hour to do that. Because really, and I'm not trying to be offensive here, but really they're just a trained monkey. They're not really having to exercise any kind of judgment or wisdom. They don't have to know anything about marketing. You give them basically a checklist of things to do and they just go execute on it. So that's one level. But it could be that you don't want to have to keep up with the times in terms of social media marketing, or you never have been up with the times of social media marketing. You don't know what to do. You don't know what would be valuable. You have the slightest idea about how to run a Facebook page and get engagement and get students from that. Well, then maybe what you need is more of a social media marketing agency, or someone who has a little bit more of an upscale service where they're actually going to get to know your business, your goals, and then match a strategy to the goals that you've given to them, right? So they take information from you, and using the wisdom that they have, they actually come up with a strategy and execute on it. You're going to pay far more for that service than for someone to just go post pictures for you because you're running that strategy. And that really is where the cost breakdown comes. How much of this process are you owning? How much could you do this on your own? How much are you in touch with the strategy and the marketing and the words that you need to use and the copy that needs to be written? How much of that can you do on your own, or how much are you going to depend on a different person to know that because you don't? And that really is what will impact the price of how much you pay for outsourcing. So for me, I'll just give an example from my own studio. I was so comfortable, with social media marketing myself that I actually wrote an ebook on it that's now been downloaded, like 5,000 times at least. Many of you who watch this have probably read that ebook. I came up with that strategy, and now I have someone just execute on that strategy for me. I don't outsource that to a third-party agency. I have a strategy that's been working for years, strategy that you could take or copy. And then I just have someone very simply follow a checklist of items and stuff gets done. So that's, one example. And let me just say this, it's not a ripoff to pay a higher amount for services. It's not a ripoff to have to pay more for someone else to bring their expertise in. It very well might be the case that it's not worth your time to become this expert on social media marketing. Maybe your time is better spent managing staff, starting a group program, finding ways to impress and please your clients more, and it actually makes sense to take some aspects of what you're doing and outsource it. And to that end, I got another example here. I, for a long, long time, did my own Google AdWords accounts. But after a certain point in time, I brought in other people because it wasn't worth my time to constantly be going in there and monitoring things and checking numbers and statistics and all this sort of thing. And so I brought in people that actually had the ability to build a strategy from scratch, and I paid more than I would have had I just brought in, again, to use a terminology from earlier, if I had brought in, quote unquote, a trained monkey to just execute that strategy. I actually had people come in and say, hey, rip my strategy to shreds, see if there's things that can be done better. I actually brought in a series of people like that, and every time the strategy got better and better and better, to the point that it was working so well that oftentimes I've had to turn ads off. And again, this is kind of off the cuff here, but I have a client in Manhattan right now that we took this strategy and put it into her business, and in the month of January, she received 35 requests for lessons, to the point where she had to turn those off because she doesn't have the room to handle all that. And she's actually now in the process of trying to figure out how she's going to expand her studio, which obviously is a good problem to have. So that kind of leads me to the second question, which is the question that Cameron had. How much could I expect to pay to outsource Google Ads? And again, I'll just give a range of prices here. If you wanted to outsource your Google Ads to a contractor that will follow a strategy that you have, and that will do kind of a minimum of work and be kind of a rock bottom price, you're probably looking at something in the range of $40 an hour, $50 an hour. If you go with someone who is more high end, who probably is better at getting results, that won't need as much input from you, who's a real expert, you're probably looking more at $80 to $100 an hour. And if you go with an agency, you're looking at even 2x, 3x on top of that, because they're really doing some sophisticated things and really just giving you white glove service all the way through. So, there's a range of prices. If you know what you're doing and you're just project managing the AdWords build, you might be able to get it done for $500. But if you're going with a kind of a white glove service that is going to look at your studio and your competition top to bottom and create a really unique strategy for you, fantastic ads, you're looking in the thousands of dollars, which will definitely pay you off. I've found it's paid off for me to the point that I now spend about $2,000 a year to keep a studio of around 100 in business. That is not a lot of money to pay to get something that really, really can provide that much profit and revenue for you. And then as a final question, Cameron asked, how much will I expect to pay on Google ads or ads in general? Like I mentioned earlier, if your strategy is really working quite well for you and you are targeting a very specific geographic area, you might get away with $1,500, $2,000, $2,500 for the year to just get flooded with leads. It's not a lot of money to pay. If you're going to and that's for search network ads. If you are going to use display network ads, so like Google Display Network, or use Facebook ads or Instagram ads, you're probably looking at about double that. It just is more costly. You reach more people, but it is more, and therefore it's more costly to use something like Facebook or Instagram ads or Facebook Messenger ads or ads like that and things of that nature. So anyway, that is a thought that I have today. I really made this video to answer some specific questions that I got. Of course, that's going to be helpful to Catherine and Cameron, but I hope it's helpful for you as well. If you have additional questions, thoughts, comments, criticisms, complaints, just leave them in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate your attention, and I will see you in the next video.